Joining us. My name is Glenn Bell, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships here at NSA. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us for today's professional services webinar, Customer EDI 820 Inbound Accounts Receivable Lockbox. Today we're going to walk through how EDI 820 inbound customer payments are received and processed through the Accounts Receivable Lockbox in CloudSuite Distribution. To start, we'll look at the setup in CSD for receiving EDI 820 customer payments and how those payments flow into accounts receivable. From there, we'll walk through the day-to-day lockbox process, including working with the payments file, making edits when needed, as well as balancing payments and deposits back to the bank statement. In the second part of the session, we'll focus on troubleshooting. We'll look at how to identify transaction issues in the Electronic Transactions Control Center and how the ION inbox and outbox admin tools can help when we need to dig a little deeper. By the end, you should have a good understanding of how EDI 820 payments move through CSD, how they manage through Lockbox, and where to look when something doesn't process as expected. Again, my name is Glenn Bell. My contact information is now on screen, and I'll share that later in chat as well. Also, for a quick bit of housekeeping, please remain muted during the session. We'll have time for Q&A near the end, so feel free to add your questions in the chat as we go. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'd like to take a moment to share a little bit about who we are at NSA. NSA was founded in 1984 around the needs of wholesale distributors, and we became the first dedicated Infor partner serving the distribution market. Our consulting team brings deep experience across cloud ERP and distribution. Many of our consultants have more than 20 years of experience with SX Enterprise, CloudSuite Distribution, and the business processes that are unique to distributors. We also bring strong technical capabilities in areas such as integrations, custom development, automation, and extending CSD and SXE environments. NSA has also invested heavily in AI, with a focus on applying it practically within distribution and ERP, while keeping the human side of ERP clearly in focus. That same philosophy carries into the NSA Plus portfolio. NSA Plus brings together more than 20 CloudSuite distribution-focused solutions designed to simplify work, close system gaps, and extend the value of the Infor platform. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Dave Rumsch, one of our senior business consultants here at NSA. Dave has been with NSA since 2013 and brings decades of hands-on experience in wholesale distribution, with deep expertise in both Infor SX Enterprise and CloudSuite Distribution. EDI is an area he has worked in extensively with our NSA clients. Dave has also held senior consulting roles directly with Infor, working with customers across the United States, Canada, and Australia, and he has seen SX evolve from character-based systems all the way through CloudSuite Distribution. Dave, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. So welcome, everybody. As Glenn said, we're going to go over customer EDI 820 inbound payments coming into the CloudSuite distribution process. I'm going to go through the setups required to process inbound EDI 820 customer payments, how to edit those payments in the lockbox entry function, how to balance them to your bank deposits, and we'll go over some troubleshooting to import on issues that happen on the importing in the Electronic Transaction Control Center. Right now, I'm going to switch over to the software itself and get underway. So this is the SX Enterprise software. CST, CloudSuite Distribution software. And first, we'll start out by going through the setups required in the administrative options to use the AR Lockbox. So under administrative options and integrations, under ION interface options, we need to make sure that this box is checked so that we can use the inbox outbox functionality to determine whether there are major errors in processing or smooth flows. That's our gatekeeper in the software. On the right side, you need to choose check the box for AR inbound remittance advice, lockbox processing for the EDI 820. Additional setups in the administrative options are honored by the Cloud Lockbox functionality. So under the customers section under cash receipts, we will honor the discount allowance in days. And that's the number of days past the discount date that we will allow a customer to take the discount automatically. And the software operates that way. If it's greater than 14 days past that date, it will not automatically pick up the discount, which you can still do manually in the entry functionality. The other area that is used is the paid in full allowance. This function right here on our system is set to $99. Yours is probably a little lower than that. But that's the amount that people are allowed to write off in cash receipts and in AR Lockbox. That's all of the administrative options associated with Lockbox that we'll be using. In operator setups, there are also some things that need to be done. If you, for example, had someone who could write off more than $99, you can actually set that person, just as you do in accounts receivable, to have a different cash receipts write-off limit. I do mine set to 0, so I do not have one outside the normal $99. But you might have someone who's authorized to do larger amounts, and that will also be honored by the import function if the person importing it is the same one that has the cash receipts write-off limit that's higher. Under other options, under the electronic controls, you'll need to have, excuse me, I apologize. That's correct. We need to have the 820 inbound turned on. There it is right there. So you need to have the ability to look at and work in Electronic Transaction Control Center. So you come into other options, ION BOD, EDI remittance, advice lockbox, and make sure that that's checked for that operator. The last section there for an individual is that they have to have security to functions that start with ED. One of the cuter things that we found out with testing, etc., is that you need to have all of those options set to ED. Now, I would set all of those to a level 4. I have mine to 5s so that you could not delete these transactions in the Electronic Transaction Control Center or in the other area that you need security to. So ETCC, there's the one. And the inbox outbox. This is a horrible acronym, but I usually just remember it by inbox outbox. So that should also be set. Once those are set, you would save your options, and then you would log out and back in to get that functionality. Okay, there's one other thing to note, that the write-off account that is used by the software is set up in the R&D operator. Those of you who work in the accounting side may be familiar with this, others may not. This is where the background default general ledger accounts are set by module. So in here, the R&D operator under other, let's see, sorry, here we go. And it's the AR stuff. Come on, there we go. So under other options, general ledger, accounts receivable, this is the default write-off account that will be used by the software. Notice this is divisionalized, so we put an asterisk up front and it will automatically load divisions. Now that's it for our setups in the administrative options and operator security. So what's necessary to make Lockbox function? First thing we need to do is set up what's called a dummy customer so that the system can recognize that you are a valid organization to receive a Lockbox file. In this case, I've set up, we call them the dummy customer. So we've set that one up right here. And under the dummy customer, you don't want anybody to be able to enter transactions. Oops, I apologize. In the wrong spot. There we go. Lockbox customer. Under the credit tab, in order to prevent anyone from entering an order, we would make sure and set the sales order status to no. This allows AR transactions to be posted when we can't figure out which customer they belong to. They'll go on this dummy customer and not allow people to enter orders on those functions. The next thing that we set up is we have to actually set up the lockbox record in Lockbox Setup. So I've set up this customer and I've assigned it that lockbox number. Now that could be your account number with the bank. It's up to you, whatever you want to use, so that it is the same as is being sent in by the bank. I'm sorry, by a bank or for customer payments that come through third-party customer payment portals. Last piece of setups is in the general ledger. So one of the newer features in Lockbox by some of our partners are allowing you to make a credit card fee that you can charge to recoup your credit card fees that you get from the credit card companies. So in the general ledger, you're going to set up an account, and I've called it 1108, for credit card offset, so that when we get the payment coming in, it goes into the customer as unapplied cash. You then do an AR transaction to offset it and charge it to this general ledger account. So this has to be set up in order to have the account available to post the credit card transaction fees. We have a couple of other setups associated with this, and that is in the business rules. In business rules, if I look for Lockbox, I see that there are two, this one and this one. This is one that is set up separately for a different company. So the business rules need to be set up in order to process Lockbox, to tell it what function am I going to use to process. And that's the actual ARELI is the Lockbox import function. And it's going to be stored and called with an @ symbol in front so that it knows how to run that when the files are imported. The second one allows you to do split check processing, which means that one customer might pay the bills for multiple customers' invoices. But both of those need to be set up in order for those functionality to function in the software. All right, let's get through some of the processing. Let's take a look at the ARELI, the Lockbox import report. And here it is, and you'll see I've set one up called @ARELI. That's the one that's going to be used based on that business rule I set up. So let's take a quick look at the functionality that it's going to do. Now, we no longer use the Lockbox file directory or even a file name in CloudSuite Distribution. These are graphical SX Enterprise processes that are required, but they are not required in CSD. The third question here relates to whether or not when you bring in the payments that are coming in either from a bank or from the customer, from your customer payment portal, do I want those to automatically update AR, the accounts receivable, and general ledger? Generally, what you do is you'll set it to no until you're comfortable. And once you experience a 99% plus hit rate, which you will through these customer portals, then you might end up changing that to update automatically when they come in. And then you would just deal with the exceptions. If I've said yes to update, I have a choice to say only update those checks that I have approved. That's basically what that means. Are they ready? And I'll show you how that works. If that's a no, I want to make sure things go unsuspended so that they will process. And suspending is really a way to say, I need to look at this. And then you can use it as a method to update or not with this function. You're going to put in your bank number. In this case, I've had bank 10. And there's my dummy customer. If I can't find who a check belongs to, I'm going to post it to the dummy customer. When I have a split transaction between companies, so I'm paying for multiple customers, I want those to clear. Go ahead and do that functionality. Number 9 is for write-offs. So if I have a short pay of less than $99, then I will do the write-off automatically. It's using that administrative option. If that's a yes, I still want to partially pay the invoices that are not being written on. So if I short pay greater than $100, it is not going to stop it from functioning. You want it to make a partial payment and leave the $100 standing on that customer's account under that invoice number so that you can manage it later once you've communicated with the customer and determined how you should handle it. Number 11, we always create the lockbox records themselves. That's where I set up the custom dummy customer. We have a functionality that we can create those for you for every single customer where they're equal to the customer number. If you're using a bank, that's not going to be the way it'll work, but on customer payment portals, that works really well. With the bank, you're probably going to get the customer's micro numbers. So those you're going to put in instead of the customer number itself, as we do for the customer payment portals. The posting date and the posting period you control. Ask receives mean today and the current period. So that's what's set up and stored as at ARELI and will be used by the software. Okay, let's take a look at what happens the next day. So throughout the day, you're maybe receiving lockbox files. You may be receiving customer payments through a portal. These will be coming in through the electronic transaction control center. When you come in here, you change this to ION VOD, to inbound remittance advice, and today's date. You might go back a day as well to look at yesterday. I'm just going to look at today's activity. You can see that I've brought in 11 transactions. It's showing me here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are already completed and ready to process. I can verify that by looking at the batch maintenance function. All this does is list the batches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same number as we saw came in and are ready for processing. Those are the ones that came through without any errors. I made a write-off on this one. I did a split check here, and I did a pay oldest here. All of those processed properly. The others are this one and a normal discount being taken. And this one was just clean. So now we're going to walk through these transactions in the electronic transaction control center to see what we need to do. I'm going to first go and check to see that the ones that are ready to process are okay. I'm going to take them one at a time. So this is the lockbox entry function. I'm going to do a lookup on the batch, search, and there's my 11 transactions. This one says it's ready to post, so I have nothing suspended. We're going to take a quick look at that. Now note that the batch numbers have to be unique while they're active. You can use the same batch number the next day, but when they're coming through the payment portal or from the bank, they will always give you a unique number. If it's not unique and is already sitting out there, it will give you a warning and say that batch is already in use. So this batch is for this check coming from, let's get into that. 1 minute. Here's my customer, 1010. It's a $100 check. I'm paying this invoice, which came in on the file for $100 even. My proof is 0, and it's paid in full. I don't have to do anything on this one to move it forward. Let's look at the second one. Second. These all look good as well. This is a straight up came in. The proof is 0. You'll notice everything looks like it's okay to process. I've got a discount taken on one of them within terms. You'll note that it's also set yes to ready to process. So everything here is nice and clean. Brought in the invoice, brought in the discount, the second invoice, and a miscellaneous credit. So I have nothing I need to do on the second item coming in. Here's the third one. Now this one is a short pay, so it wants you to verify that. It's not ready to post because it wants to make sure that you've taken a look at that short pay. When I bring it in, I can see these 2 transactions posted properly. They're paid in full, no problem. The one on the top, however, was paid $2,000 They only paid $1,900 on it. So it's outside my write-off limit of 99 bucks. So it will do a partial payment. Now I need to approve that. And the way that I approve it is I go into the transaction itself. I say ready to process, yes. I say okay, and then save. Now when we look up, you'll see that number 3 should be checked, and it is. The fourth one. This is another one that you really don't have to do anything with. I'm going through them to show them to you. On this one, I've got an $8.38 write-off. I'm looking over here, and I can see the original invoice amount is $108.38. I could do the research by looking at that invoice number, 572, to see what the actual amount is. I can do that in the accounts receivable, inquire on customer, make sure I get the customer number right. And I believe that number was 572. So invoice 572. And you can see that the original invoice is for $108.38. Now you might call the customer, you might talk to customer service. They may come back and say, you know, that was for freight that weren't supposed to charge them, or sales tax, or the price might be wrong. So what they're going to tell you is that you need to write it off, that we really shouldn't be collecting that. Now, again, because you set a limit of $99, it's going to happen automatically. I would say in most cases, you're not going to follow up with customer service when you do that. You might if it's a significant item or a customer that's continually giving you problems. Okay, let's look at number 5. This one is a split check. So number 5. And I can see that I've got 3 different invoices for different customers. There's my customer numbers. So this was the master customer that brought it in. He paid this invoice and this invoice on these other 2 customers. Everything's in balance. Looks good, just showing that it did a split payment correctly. Now let's get into some of the anomalies. The 6th transaction. This one needs work. And it came in, and you'll notice it's unapplied cash against the dummy customer because it could not find an invoice number 2862-01. So if you're going to go look and see where did that come from, you're going to go to the bank and look at the check, or you're going to go on the customer portal and you're going to figure out who that customer is and why it didn't process. When you do that, you figure out that that should be invoice number 2862 without the -01. So if you take a quick look, you can see positive all of these in order entry. Let's see if it's there. Yeah, it is. And not a great example. I apologize. Our database has a bunch of dummy stuff in it. So let's continue working on it from this point of view. If I look at the customer inquiry, customer 17811. So this is like having converted data where you don't have a background order to support it, just the AR transaction. And if you look through here, and I'm looking for 2862, I see that there is a 2862, but the suffix is 00, not 01. So I can go back to the lockbox entry function. First thing I need to do is I need to change the customer number to 17811. So I do that right here, change my customer number to this one. It's hold on a second. That's not what it is. So let's do that again. Change customer number. This one. That's doing something very weird. So I'm gonna delete this off the dummy. Looks like it actually came in on this customer. The reason it came in on that customer is because I have a lockbox record set up for 17811. There it is. So it knew who the customer was because of that 17811. So it did not go to the dummy customer. So now all we need to do is delete this invoice. Select that one, delete it, add transactions. We're going to add a scheduled payment, which is what an invoice is called. You might have more than one scheduled payment for an invoice. They pay half now and half in 30 days. So I want to see all the scheduled payments that are open. I'm looking for 2862. And there it is right there. And sorry, no, it's the $5 one. There it is. And apply, click OK. And it loads it onto the order. It's fixed it with a -0, and my proof is now 0, and we should be ready to process. This one's already checked ready to process, so when I save it, it will change the master record to also ready to process. There it is. Next one down. This is an example of unapplied cash because a customer made an overpayment. So in this case, they paid $901.75. So they had an overpayment of $693. They actually paid $801 against this invoice right here. So if you go look at on your customer portal, you'll see that they actually transposed numbers around and gave you $801.75. The difference was greater than $100, so it didn't write it off. Instead, it says, okay, I'm going to leave that as unapplied cash on the account. And you must approve that. Say ready to process and okay. You'll call the customer and let them know, or customer service will, they've got an overpayment. Do they want to check or just apply it against future invoices? See. All right, number 8. Now, something that you can do in the software in the setups is you can set a specific customer to always pay oldest. So what that means is when they send a check in, they never send in the invoice numbers. They just send the check. So in this case, for this customer, under the credit screen, under the lockbox post type, I've set this to oldest. So if I get a check for this customer, I'm going to apply it to their oldest accounts receivable. I can also do this by, most of them are going to be blank. So it's doing it by invoice number. We also do it by statement. The system keeps track of the last 3 statements that you've sent invoices out on, and it tries to build first 3 statements back, 2 and then 1, to build the total that's being paid. If it can't, it's not going to work. I don't have too many customers that use this function, truly because not too many pay just by statement. Mostly the automated payments are by oldest. This will work, however, if you pay by statement. Additionally, you could do it by total in the case where you might be winding up a customer and they're paying off their account. Again, as I said, most of these will be set to blank so that it will use the invoice number that's brought in to find the customer. So this one is set to oldest. Let's see how that one came in. There's my one right here saying pay oldest. Notice also that in the additional data column, I've indicated the type of payments. So these are ACHs coming through the customer portal. This is a check you might have got from the bank, and this is a credit card transaction. Okay, so we're doing a pay oldest. If I go into the lockbox entry function, number 8, you notice how the status is checked, which means that it did it properly. So when I look at that one, you could see that it went back based on date and grabbed these 3 credits, these 2 invoices, and it proofed out to 0. If there was a remaining overpayment, it would go to unapplied to the next invoice and make a partial payment on the next invoice. This one's already set to process. So we've only got a couple left that we really need to worry about. The next one shows the credit card surcharges. So more and more today, our partners in their customer payment portals allow you to assess the fee for processing the credit cards. The customer will pay you that fee. However, when it comes into your software, you don't have a fee set up as a receivable, so it's going to go to unapplied cash. Then you'll need to create an AR transaction to offset it and charge your your credit card fee account. So let's take a look at that one. So it's showing that they paid the full $155.71. 3% of that is 7.79. Sorry, 5%. We did a 5% surcharge, which is $7.79 that they paid extra in the portal, and it's going to unapplied cash. Now, I would have to actually create an invoice separately and then apply this against that invoice in order to apply it here. Or we can just let it go onto the account and do it there. I'm going to do it now. So I go to ARET, Accounts Receivable Transaction Entry, and I'm going to create an invoice for this customer. Using today's date. Excuse me. In the amount of $7.79. And that's fine. And it's going to be allocated to this account naturally on that account. Now, I don't want to allocate it to that account, right? I want to allocate it to sales income. Make sure I get this right. Add the account and I'll do a lookup. Find the account I set up for this purpose for clearing these. And that's the account that I want it to go to. I think I typed the amount wrong. We'll fix that. Okay, let me go back to my main save. I know. And I put the wrong amount in here. Should be 7.79. And next, I'm in balance. It's got the wrong account there. I delete that again and I'll add a new account. Okay. I have to save it. That's why I didn't take it. Save right here. And then I should be able to come out, close down my entry function, because that's already been updated in the software. Now I can go back to the lockbox entry function and I can say, add that invoice. So we're going to add that scheduled payment. I did that on the wrong person, didn't I? 242. That's right. It's not out there. I apologize. Let me make sure where that went. Nope, just the one invoice. I must have got it wrong. I'm going to go ahead and update that and then we'll do it afterward. So I'm going to let that go to unapplied cash. I have to approve the unapplied cash and I'll go through the application process in the other manner. Okay, I've only got one left here. Actually, And this one, customer has taken a late discount. So notice that my discount amount is 0. I could write that off. See what it's doing with the write-off. The system would make a normal partial payment on this if you didn't do something about it. But when you go look at that invoice to see why they short paid it, you see that they took the late discount. So you can highlight the invoice, recall the discount, and it brings it up, and my proof is now 0. So I'm paying it in full. I'm going to approve it. I can also do paid in full. Sorry. Leave that like it is. Yeah, there we go. So it's now ready to process and save. And hold on a second. I go back and look at that one. What does it think I did wrong? It still has it created an unapplied cash because he thinks it's out of balance. So I'm going to delete that. My payment amount is this. Invoice, apply, proof. Something else going on with that? That one should have applied properly, so I apologize. Let me take that out. Say okay, we'll do it, put it back in a minute. The proof is now 0. It's going to do a partial payment. I'm going to change that and add my discount amount. It really thought it was going to end up with nothing, didn't it? I'm going to do it differently. I apologize. We'll just delete the thing. And then we'll go add it back. Invoice 8422. Seriously. All right, well, let's just make things weird. Fun. Wrong customer. No, right customer. That's the one. I'm going to just delete everything I've done on it. Hold on. See how it comes in. I've done something strange because it thinks my proof is weird. So I apologize for that. A normal recall of a discount will bring it up properly. It seems like I've done it in a bad method. So I'm going to save it down like it is and let it go ahead and create that unapplied cash. Apologies. This works properly. I must have done something weird myself. Okay, save. It's going to create my unapplied cash on it, and I'm going to let that go for now. And save. Now when I do a look up here, everything is checked. They're all ready to go. So now I'm going to go update those in the software. We're going to post to General Ledger and update the invoices. So I can use this one, or I could do a one-time. Now notice that the batches, we're going to do this by batch range. So I'm going to take that number, use it as my beginning, and then 10 is my ending. And next. I can run this in edit mode first if I want to see what it's going to do. Bank 10. So let's do that first just to see what it looks like. This isn't going to update anything. And I can see my report here. There we go. So this is what it would do. It's going to open a journal for each check. So to balance to the general ledger, I'll show you that in one quick second. This is the check for $100. Here's how it was applied by customer. Here's how it was applied by check number. It's all the same check. And here's my no general ledger because I did it in edit mode. So there's my second check, etc. I go through those quicker. So here's all the detail. Again, I want to show you how the split check looks here. That's going to be the fifth one. Come down. So this is the split check for $502.26. Now that split check paid 3 different customers. So it lists them separately here. This invoice for 13, this invoice for 486, this invoice for 326. That's by customer. Now it does it again by check. So by check number, I can show this one, and this one, and total for the check. So it's all on one little section. And then lastly, will be the general ledger. So now we're going to go ahead and run that in update mode to get our general ledger posted. And let's talk about the balancing before we do it. In order to balance this to the general ledger, I'm going to take all of these transactions. I'm going to export them to Excel. Bring that up. And then I'm going to get the total right here. There's my deposit that came through that customer portal or from a bank, wherever it might have originated. So there's my total that the deposit should be, and that should reconcile to the bank. So let's go ahead and update that. Now, unfortunately, we're going to get a whole bunch of journals. So in the process of, in balancing, you really want to balance from the entry lockbox maintenance entry before you update. You can do it later if you want by looking for ARELU journals, because that's the function we're using, ARELU lockbox update. With the date range, I can say this went to yesterday because they came in last night. And save. And refresh. For those of us who don't have patience to watch it sit there. And there it goes. So now when I go over to the maintenance function, I only have one left that I haven't gone over yet. On an inactive invoice, it posted everything else. So if I was now short from my bank, I might notice, oh, shoot, I'm short $21.79 here. So I'm going to go into the lockbox entry and realize there it is. Now, this particular one, if you look at it, it has an error and that it's already been paid. Should be already paid. Make sure that that's true. Should come back with an active invoice question. Sometimes, what you set up doesn't always work. So in any event, what I had done there was I tried to pay an inactive invoice. And that might happen. Somebody goes to a customer portal, makes a payment, but somebody's already gone to the system and applied that invoice against an unapplied cash. So it'll come through and say, hey, that invoice is inactive. And then you would post it to unapplied cash and call the customer. Okay, so let's look at another way that you can balance is by looking up the journals for that function for today's date. They were open today, even though they posted to yesterday. And these are all of those journals right here. You could run a report on all the journals and then total it. I'm not sure if you're going to get a grand total at the bottom of it. I really like doing it better on the balance maintenance entry function other than this, but you can use this process for running the AR journal print from this journal from 9493 to 9500. sure I got them all. Oh, 94.91. I knew there was supposed to be 10. I'm not positive this is going to give you a grand total at the end, but if you total them up, you'll get the total amount of the deposit as well. Let's see if it gives us a grand total at the bottom. No, it looks like it's doing each journal separately. Oh, wait, no, it isn't. There it is right there. There's my grand total. So I can run it for the day and get my deposit as well, the grand total of all those journals. So that's what I have to present. I'm ready to take questions now if you have any.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much for that walkthrough. Great job showing how EDI 20 customers payments move in through CSD through the lockbox process, and just as importantly, where to look when something does not process as expected. At this point, we will open it up for questions, and I know we've had a few roll in along the way, so we're going to jump right into those. The very first one here is there an ARELI report that will show you what checks or transactions have to be fixed? Or is the only way to see errors or issues to go one by one?
So if you are using a bank process already, using SESX Enterprise and you're doing an upgrade, you can import that same file using the ARELI function, using the same thing you're doing today when you upgrade. The way that you do it is you first load your file into a directory here. Use data conversion for now. I look for my lbx.in file, which is normally what the banks call it. You get it, or it's been converted to that. So I brought it in, and then I'm going to run ARELI. And if I've done this right, it will give us what you're looking for.
Okay, great.
Hold on one second.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah. So all of these are set appropriately. Maintain. Next. And save. And let's take a quick look at that report. There's our import report, and I'd already done that transmission. It will do the same one that you've got today, and you'll see all the checks below. I apologize that I had already done that one. Go ahead, next question.
Okay. How does the EDI 820 remittance XML file BOD process work on Lockbox? Can the Lockbox record, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase this one, can it be created via API?
Yes, in fact, the Lockbox records come in through the inbox out through Ion. And you can actually see them coming in the Ion location. What we do is we set up a connection point. And in this case, I'm using this connection point. And in there, I've said, what documents do I process? I process remittance advices. And then I set up a data flow that uses that. And the data flow shows that here's the invoice coming in, the remittance advice payment, rather, coming in from outside into CSD. And that's what brings it into the software. You can verify that that happened by looking in one view. I'm going to look at today's date. So just look at today. I'm looking for remittance advices. It's process remittance advice and search. And there are the 10 that I brought in today. A lot of different times. Look at those. Yeah, I did a lot of testing today. So you can verify that they've come in here. And for example, this one shows that it came in and was processed. If there was a red X there, it would say that it did not. The next place that you would see it coming in is in the Ion inbox outbox. Change this to inbound. I'm looking for remittance advices. And I'm looking for them within, I'm going to say today. Now notice that I did a whole bunch of testing today, but I can find the ones that processed through today in this list. If I see anything that says that the status is an error, then it did not come in. And I had none that were an error. If you find that something didn't come in that you were expecting, you will find it here once you've noticed it coming through Island. Go ahead. Next question.
All right. Kind of quick and easy one on this, I think, but are there any advantages or disadvantages to the new lockbox versus the legacy lockbox?
Basically, the legacy lockbox allowed you to have one report which balanced to the general ledger. The newer function does it by doing individual transactions per journal. And so I showed you the balancing approach for that. That's probably the only real negative. Otherwise, the functionality is identical to how it was in the SX Enterprise software.
Okay. All right, great. We have one more so far, and then we'll certainly ask everyone if there's any other additional questions. But next in line is using ETCC to change batch transmission numbers, something that only ERP admins would typically have access to.
Yes, that's correct. What they're referring to there is the transmission number that came in through EDI. So for example, you saw it actually on the report I showed where it said it had already been imported with that transmission number. Matter of fact, that's a great way to just show you quick how that looked. In other words, file transmission's already been processed. You would have the same thing in ETCC. It would kick out actually in the inbox outbox is where that will kick out.
Okay. There was a bit of a follow-up on this one too, which is the character limit still 8 for check numbers?
Yes, it is. No change.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to just ask, are there any additional questions? I know we've gone through an awful lot of material. We do have a few minutes left here to go through. So if there's anybody else, any other questions you might have? I see some typing. Oh, okay. Just looks like how are lockbox transactions received from a bank?
The same process goes on with the bank. So they'll come in the way it happens in the SX Enterprise software for bank imports is we would go out and grab the file from the bank, bring it into the software, and make it ready to process. That is exactly the same in CSD. We set up a connection point in Ion. We set up a data flow that gets the file from the bank and puts it in the inbound directory. And then you would run the normal ARELI import function to post those transactions.
Okay, well, wonderful. I think that's what we've got for questions coming in. So I think if you've got some next steps coming up.
So your next steps, if you've not done this before, is to contact your third-party processor, and that might be the bank, and it might be a customer, someone that does customer payment portals. Discuss with them how you could implement the AR Lockbox or customer payment solution. Once you've established they can do it for you and you're comfortable with the pricing, you would contact your NSA business consultant, and then we would get together, set up an initial kickoff with them. Sorry. Place. I'm going all over. There we go. Sorry. And set up the initial kickoff meeting with all the parties and move forward from them. So those are your next steps.
Okay, well, thank you. And
additionally, I'd like to let you know that we've got 5 webinars now complete on the EDI series. And those are the dates. Those are out on the webinars for NSA. And I'm planning to work on these other ones. NSA is in total to be coming out in the near future. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, great. I mean, Dave, thank you again for taking the time to put all this together. And thank you everyone for being able to join us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come and connect with these sessions. And just again, really appreciate it. For those who have attended the, this session, or anyone who's registered, we will definitely be sending out a recording. That recording will come out to you by email. That'll be available to download. So I appreciate that. We hope that, today's session gave you a better understanding of how EDI 820 inbound customer payments work with Accounts Receivable Lockbox and CSD, as well as some of the useful tools for managing and troubleshooting those transactions. So again, thank you all. We greatly appreciate it, and have a wonderful day.
Bye, folks.